Hello and welcome to the You Are the Program podcast. We are back. It is the Minnesota preview series, and we are coming dangerously close to football season. We are only 9 days away from week 0. I should know those days because that is also my wedding day. 9 days away from week 0. How we doing, fellas? We got Brian Lewerke, Dante Rosano, Tyler Higbee. Hello to everyone. Before we start, I want to remind everyone to please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast as well as our YouTube page, because we will be bringing you content every week, every pregame, every postgame during the season on YouTube, as well as anywhere that you get your podcasts. We couldn't be happier, I guess, with where we're at and continuing to expand. Fellas, how are we doing? Good to see you all.
I'm good. I'm glad we have the video rolling now, because I don't know if you can tell, I got a nice little tan and went on a cruise last week.
Couldn't tell.
Yeah, a little bit. I got a little seasick on the cruise. That wasn't great, but I'm thriving now. I got kind of sleep deprived, staying up till midnight every night, but we're feeling good. And like Dante said, we are 9 days away from football. I'll be watching some games on my phone during his wedding, probably.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
You know, I don't know if we're in the minority here, but the three of us talked about it last week while you were on that cruise. I mean, I've never been on a cruise, and I have zero desire to go on a cruise.
I'm not even going to go back.
I don't know if we're in the minority there. Maybe our listeners can make a poll or something, but I'd so much rather go to like an all-inclusive for 7 days than be on a boat for 7 days.
Nowhere to go. Storms coming in.
Yeah, especially when the boat has to turn around because there's a storm in Cabo, so we just have to turn around and go back.
Hey, you just roll with the changes. You don't got anywhere else to go, I guess.
It's true. You just walk around the boat.
Yeah. All right, so we've moved decently through this. I know we have quite a few preview podcasts to get through here. As I said, the season's kind of a harsh reminder for us to finalize these preview podcasts. And we got to do, we still have Minnesota today coming out. After Minnesota, I believe it's Penn State, Iowa, and Maryland to finish the season. Then we will also be bringing you a Michigan State preview podcast and a Big Ten preview podcast. Those might just be rolled into one. That might be just a long form, hour and a half. And honestly, fellas, I haven't even brought this up to you guys, but that might be a good time to do a live stream. Just thinking through it here, so we can, if it's a longer form, that way we can interact. People check in and out, and then they can catch the full podcast whenever. But I think that might be a good opportunity and a way for us to kind of consolidate two recordings in one. But either way, a lot to do before the football season. But as the days and the weeks start to build here between early August and now we're already in mid-August, before we know it, week 0 will be upon us. I'm tuning into a lot more national podcasts, hearing a lot more buzz across the X feed, just seeing a lot more. And now you're really in that point where, like, 2 weeks away, it starts to feel tangible, because you know what 2 weeks feels like. You know what Labor Day weekend feels like, because you are right around the corner and we're sneaking up on it. So the anticipation from me couldn't be higher. I know for you guys it's the same way. Very, very excited to get going. And let's talk a little bit about the Minnesota Golden Gophers, the Fighting PJ Flex.
Spare me.
What else? What else do we got on them?
Row the boat, Sky Yacht, Gophers.
My goodness.
So if you could, Brian.
This guy stinks.
Brian, if you could pull up the banner there that goes through their betting info. Minnesota here to win the Big Ten. And this is, again, we like to preface this in our discussions with kind of where they're at. It gives us a mind frame on what the public sees on them and then kind of where they're set. The over-under win total for Minnesota is 6.5. For reference, Michigan State is at 5.5. To win the Big Ten plus 13,000. So there's a long shot stab at them. And then to make the playoff is plus 1,400. So we'll come back to this. And Brian, I would start scrolling that schedule here soon, but we'll save that for the end on kind of what our expectations are for Minnesota. Last year they were I want to say 7-5 football team. Someone
Sounds
fact
very
check
Minnesota.
Someone
Yes,
fact
they
check
were.
them.
They were, and then they won their bowl game.
So I kind of want to start the Minnesota podcast off by doing this and talking the PJ Fleck era that Minnesota has been in, because although like the hype hasn't been there, I don't know what you're really expecting when PJ Fleck comes and takes over Minnesota after he was at Western, and they did a lot of really good things at Western, elevated that program. But how high are the heights that Minnesota can reach? And I do feel like, I think he had 1 year where they were 10-2, 11-1. When we were still in school, they had a really good season. But outside of that, it does feel like they've been kind of a consistent 6, 7, 8, and sometimes reaching up over that. Do you think, like, overall, looking at a granular view, or not even a larger term view of the PJ Fleck tenure, has it been a success at Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, he's going into his 9th year now. I think they've made 6 bowl games, won 9 games 3 times. So he's had some success there. He's kind of like the perfect guy for Minnesota, but also like the not perfect guy, because, like you mentioned, his ceiling doesn't seem to be very high, but his floor is not that low either. It's kind of like the same thing with Iowa and Kirk Ferentz. But I mean, if you're Minnesota, you can't be upset with winning a 9-10 game season every 3rd or 4th year.
Yeah.
Kind of competing maybe for the Big Ten and now possibly for the playoffs as well. So I'd be happy if I was a Minnesota fan, and people may say I'm wrong, but I would be happy with winning 9 games every once in a while.
Listen, if I'm a Minnesota fan, I'm pretty pleased with what he's done with this program. I mean, they're consistently in a bowl game, and to me, they're kind of always just like, oh, we gotta play Minnesota. Like they're never like you chalk them up as a win right off the bat, and I feel like it's always a tougher game than you want it to be. They're never going to blow you away with talent, but they're always gonna have that one game a year where they upset a Penn State, or they take down Wisconsin last second, something like that. It's always a gross game to watch, but it just seems like they're always around 7-5, 8-4, and they'll have like one upset a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with Minnesota right now is stability. He's added stability there to where, in years past, I think back to like the early 2000s, they had the running back duo. It was Marion Barber, if you guys remember Marion the Barbarian, the old Dallas Cowboys running back, and they had someone else under, I think, is it Glenn Taylor, their head coach? He was a Big Ten Network, Glenn Mason, not Glenn Taylor. And they were kind of high at that point. They were playing in the Metrodome. I remember as a kid kind of growing up, Minnesota had some heights. But since then, I remember through the years of before PJ Fleck, they were just a horrid program. And if anything, he has raised the floor, and that program has become stable to where you know what you're going to get. It's never going to be a super high-flying offense. It's going to be a physical offense. Typically, they have 1 or 2 guys on either side of the ball on the front 7 specifically. That seems to be a guy. Boye Mafe, I think a couple years ago, they had a couple draft picks up front.
Mountain of a human.
They just have very, very large guys. And that's kind of the theme if you look at the Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin belt up there. But, if anything, I think it should very well be considered a success so far under PJ Fleck, because even us looking at this game and forecasting this game ahead, you see Minnesota at Minnesota, it's not a toss, or it's not even a guaranteed win. It's more of a toss-up game. You know what you're going to have to bring to that game, and it's not something that can just roll over. So I'm impressed with them, but I don't know how high their ceiling is ever going to be at a Minnesota. But PJ Fleck, I think he's a good coach. Antics seem to be don't love him. I know Tyler doesn't love him.
As much as I hate PJ Fleck, and I talk a lot of shit about him, his guys play hard. Like you said, Dante, they're gonna fight to the last play, and they're usually very sound. They're not gonna beat themselves. I don't know the penalty stats. Maybe we can pull it up for later, but they seem to not beat themselves too often, and so they're gonna. It's just not an easy game. I remember going there. What was that? 2017.
2017. Yeah.
And just it was cold and rainy. I mean, like I said, it's always just gross when you think of Minnesota. So that's what it is. But it's like you said, it's consistent.
I do love how PJ Fleck always wears the suit and tie on the sidelines.
I hate it.
I know it's a little cheesy, but I love the coaches. I think maybe more so in basketball when they wear a suit and tie.
I like it in basketball, but PJ
in
Fleck's
basketball,
a
it's nice.
big
In
knee
football,
guy.
it's just like you're going to do business. You're trying to go win a football game. You dress nice.
No.
Let me win the game.
Nope.
Yeah.
Big me guy.
All right, let's look into 2025, but I want to do it by prefacing looking at their 2024 record. As we had talked about, 7-5 last year, 5-4 in Big Ten play, won the bowl game. They were last year points per game. They were 26.2 points per game, 80th out of 134, which again, I'll talk about the trend with Minnesota. You kind of know what you're getting. Physical up front. They don't have a high-flying offense or more ground control. And that shows on the defensive side of the ball. They were holding opponents to 16.9 points a game, so about 17 points a game. That was 9th in Division I football last year. So, again, you know what you're getting with Minnesota. When you're going to play them, it's going to be a hard-fought game. I expect more of it this year because they're, as we're going to talk about, turning over the keys from Max Brosmer last year, who was a transfer. Thought he was a decent quarterback. I mean, he wasn't anything flashy, but Minnesota, I feel like year after year after year, has rolled out game managers at quarterback, and they're going to be turning the keys over to a redshirt freshman this year, Drake Lindsey. Saw some snaps last year, and he's been talked up in the program, but really the focus of this offense is the ground game. Darius Taylor returns, pretty good back, physical back, and you know that they're going to continue to churn and rotate out in the backfield with Darius Taylor, and then they brought in a transfer A.J. Turner from Marshall. Brian, you had noted he actually averaged 8.3 yards a carry last year, which is very impressive. They brought in 4 guys from the portal, lost 3, so they're kind of trying to figure things out up front. However, as I've alluded to time and time again, we know what the theme of this offense and this team is going to be. It's going to be ground control. It's going to be try to be more physical than you. And they do that pretty well.
They do. And I think it all starts with their quarterback, Drake Lindsey. He's a young guy, didn't get a ton of snaps last year. But like you mentioned, Dante, they always have – I feel like they always have a solid quarterback, Max Brosmer.
And I feel like there's one receiver that's on their team at all times that's like a stud, and then the rest of them are just guys.
Yeah, and like Brosmer, quarterback, Tanner Morgan a couple years ago. Who was the receiver they had a couple years ago that went like in the first round? I'm blanking on his name, but
so am I. I was just trying to think of it.
I don't remember, but they always have one guy like Mo Ibrahim at running back. They always have one guy in offense that seems to be like their bread and butter that they just go to every time, but they never have like a consistent, help around that person. It's always kind of just one singular guy that does stuff. But I think they could put up some points. I'm not expecting them to, but I think it's definitely feasible for this offense this year.
Well, you touched on it, Dante. It's going to be like a brand new O-line for this team, which, you don't really know what you're going to get. Obviously, they're high on the guys they brought in, but you lost a lot of production from the team they had last year. So you're not going to really know until you see these guys in action and what it looks like when the bullets start flying. I'm not going to go as far as to say this Minnesota's been like RBU, but you mentioned Ibrahim, Brian. They've had some backs. They've had consistent play from the running back position. I feel like that gives them a chance in just about every game they play. They just can't have a guy named Calic Manis back there trying to get the job done.
He was the one guy quarterback that you can just forget about him.
Oh,
craziest name.
Manis. Fun fact is going to be the starter again this year at Rutgers. I don't know.
They got to have somewhat like some young guy at Rutgers, right?
I mean, similar to Minnesota, you know what Rutgers is. They're not going to have a quarterback that can throw a ball. And look, Calic Manis has a huge arm, but we know what that guy's bringing to the table in terms of completion percentage. It ain't pretty.
He's not beating you with his arm. You're not game planning against him. I can tell you that.
No. He did shred us last year, though. I mean, I don't know what his final stats were in that last game of the year, but that was just ugly all around. The name that you were thinking of, Rashad Bateman.
Rashad Bateman, yeah, okay.
So it always feels like last year, or they have a receiver that's always that guy. And last year, I'm trying to remember, it was number 1. He was making catches all over the place in that North Carolina game last year.
Lemeke Brockington?
No,
that you're thinking of?
No, that's not it. I can't tell you for sure, but I promise you, I did not hear a Lemeke Brockington reference on the screen last year that I was thinking of. All right, defensively is where it gets interesting. And this guy that I'm going to mention is someone that is going to play receiver and both sides of the ball for Minnesota. So this might be the guy that we're talking about, and it's Coy Parrish. Freshman last year, freshman All-American last year. He racked up a total of, let me see here. Those are kick returns.
The poor man's Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's he's
maybe
nice.
not poor.
He was a true freshman last year. Totaled 48 total tackles. You know, as a safety, that's not a huge deal. He had how many different interceptions? Sorry for the bad podcasting. He had 5 different interceptions last year. He was also their punt returner and kick returner last year. Didn't bring any back to the house, but this guy is an absolute weapon. As a true freshman, like you just watch his highlight tape, the way that this guy flies around, the size that he has, he's an impressive player. 6'1", 200 pounds. He didn't look like a true freshman at all last year. And this is going to be the guy. I know we've gone into the defensive side, but they're going to play him on both sides of the ball this year. And I would expect this guy to have a huge year. I've even mentioned or heard him mentioned in the same conversation as Caleb Downs is one of the best safeties in the country. And that's saying a lot, because a lot of the preseason stuff on Caleb Downs is in the draft next year, he's probably the best player in the draft. Won't go number 1 as a safety. But that's the type of company that this guy's in terms of where we start the defensive discussion and kind of segue it from the offensive discussion, because he's going to play a factor on that side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I think he will. And I think they have some other guys that can kind of complement him. Obviously, he's going to be the main guy. But when you think of Minnesota as a team, we've mentioned it throughout this entire pod, is a defensive team and a team that's going to be gritty. And they're just very consistent on the defensive side of the ball. They've had 3 different defensive coordinators in the last 3 years. So they've had some shuffling there, but they've consistently been a good defense.
Including our guy, Joe Rossi.
Yep. They've had a top 15 defense 3 times in those 8 years. And they just promoted the longtime assistant, Danny Collins, to defensive coordinator, who, if you have a history, or if you know the history of Minnesota, will probably be a good coach as well. As far as their returning players, they return 10 of 17 guys with 200 plus snaps. So they have some experience, not a ton, but probably more than most schools. So it can definitely be a bolster for them on the defensive side of the ball.
Other than Coy Parrish, I feel like this team, I mean, even in the past, it was never a defense that's filled with superstars. Like you talked about, like with Ohio State or Michigan, whatever team you want to compare it to. Yes, they have guys that can play, guys that, like in Coy's case, are freshman All-American, but they're just solid. I said about the offense to start, like they're not going to beat themselves. They're sound, they're solid. What you said, Brian, they've had a top 15 defense the last three the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just they're solid, and I always feel like they have good linebackers. I always remember, like when we played them, we always do the scouting report, and 2 of the 3 linebackers are circled. I mean, damn near every time you play them. So they're just going to be solid, and I think whatever side of the field Coy's on, it's a stay away. Stay away.
I mean, that's like the highest compliment I feel like that you can pay to PJ Fleck, because again, the program is at a point where I feel like I've said it too many times. You just know what you're going to get, no matter how many guys they return on defense, especially on that side of the ball. I mean, offensively they have their identity, but they've had some bad offenses. But like defensively, it doesn't matter who they lose. And they're never bringing in big name recruits. They're never bringing in, high profile transfers. but they know who they are. And that's the most impressive thing, is that they know who they are, they know what they're going to do, and they're going to do it effectively, no matter if they lose a guy that they've developed for 3-4 years, like a Boye Mafe. Even through 3 different coordinators, they've still remained the same in terms of that line of thinking on how they want to play football, and they carry it out and they execute at a high level. So, I'll talk, the PJ Fleck discussion is kind of separate, because I feel like if he's at a different program where the ceiling could be higher, where he could recruit to a very high level, I don't know how high of heights he could take a program to, but in terms of elevating a Minnesota program to this level of consistency and popping off for 9 wins every 3-4 years, that's kind of what you want to expect. And that's kind of the highest compliment that I could play, is they know who they are. They know how they're going to play. They're going to be physical, and defensively, it doesn't matter who they lose. It just feels like it's going to be plug and play every time. So Coy Parrish, keep an eye out for him, because he's going to be making plays all over the field. He's going to be, probably when we do the preview podcast, the number 1 guy that we're going to talk about on that preview podcast. So I'm excited for this game, because this is going to be one that we're going to be rolling fresh off the Michigan game. And one thing that's going to be interesting to see as the Jonathan Smith tenure continues to evolve is Coach D's biggest thing was always the week after the Michigan game, right? The Michigan game was the biggest thing on our schedule. It was the number 1, wanted to beat them, had to beat them. But it wasn't just that. He put such an emphasis that next week on, okay, you beat them. How are you going to follow it up? Because that win means nothing if you lose to whoever you play the next week. And Jonathan Smith, many people have cried out about how he coached in the Michigan game, the Dodgers jokes early in the week. That will all play out. I have no doubts in my mind that he learned something that first year. None of us 3 thought anything was out of the ordinary about that week, about how he handled it. Maybe it wasn't Coach D-esque, but he's not Coach D. And so, we'll learn how he evolves that week. But the bigger thing for me is, win or lose against Michigan, what happened last year after the Michigan game cannot continue to happen, right? Because that's like, Michigan game should have won that game. But after, we just fell off a cliff in terms of, it seemed like, team morale, execution, and the passion, honestly, that we played with week in, week out. So very interesting spot on our schedule for this game to fall. And it's not going to be an easy one. This is going to be a very, very tough game up in Minnesota. So, Brian, do you want to pull up the Minnesota schedule, take it off the banner, pull it up on the schedule, or keep the schedule? Pull it up on the banner. Take it. Yeah. All right, and then pull up the betting odds again, because I want to talk through a couple of these things. So over under at 6.5. They have a very tough schedule. I think this might be one of the hardest schedules we've seen so far. If we go through like USC, any of the preview podcasts we've done. So Minnesota's schedule in order here is home against Buffalo, home against Northwestern State. No issues there.
Forks up.
Northwestern State. There we go.
Hey, yeah, all right.
At Cal, tough game. I think they should be able to win that game. Cal losing Fernando Mendoza. I don't know what they're going to be this year, but if you're Minnesota, you have to be expecting a win in that game. Conference play starts. So we all thinking 3-0 there?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think at Cal is still going to be a little tricky, but yeah.
All thinking 3-0 there for the most part. I know there's an asterisk on Cal a little bit, but I do think they should be able to go out there and win that game. Home against Rutgers, I expect them to win that game at home. Then the gauntlet starts. You have at Ohio State, automatic loss. Home against Purdue.
Yeah. Home against Purdue, then home against Nebraska.
I don't see them beating Nebraska, but to Tyler's point, or Brian, or whoever brought that up earlier, they do seem to win one that they're kind of not expected to, right? I see this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It might be right on the line.
6. I see it more likely as a 7-5 team than a 6-5 team. I have their automatic wins. The 3 that we talked about: Rutgers, Purdue, So that's 5. I think they beat Northwestern on the road and they beat Wisconsin on the road. I think we beat them at home. But again, that's going to be a tough game. I do like their over. They have a tough – they got to go on the road to Ohio State, on the road to Iowa, on the road to Oregon. I think those are 3 losses that we can count for them right there. But any of those other games, I really don't see a huge issue. Now, it will all depend on, I think, what their offense produces this year. But I think they're going to go over the 6.5.
I agree. I don't see a world where they win over 8 games, but I think it'll be right around that line of like 6 to 7.
But do you see a world where they win less than 5 though? Like that's kind of my point.
I don't think so.
I right in between there.
Yeah, I think like 5 is like the floor for them.
Yeah,
I think it's very feasible.
I know what we've learned over the last few years is Vegas is very good at their job.
They are, except when I go there, I take the money from them.
Yeah, settle down. I mean, I think that's a. I think 7-5 is. I mean, it's what they are, and this schedule sets up perfectly for them to go 7-5 again. Maybe you sneak a win at Iowa, but you lose to Northwestern. I mean, that'd be a typical Minnesota season.
Yeah, you can't count them into any game, and you can't count them out of any game. Like that's what's tough forecasting the middle of the pack Big Ten this year. I released I sent out that tweet about like the Big Ten tier list. And they're one of those teams that's just in the middle. Like I could see them being pretty good, but I don't see them like very unlikely. Well, obviously very unlikely to win the Big Ten, but I'll ask you guys. We've asked this on every preview show. Would you be stunned if they won the Big Ten? I think This is a resounding yes. Or we're in the Big Ten. Would you be more surprised if they were in the Big Ten championship game or Iowa was in the Big Ten championship game?
I'd be more surprised with Minnesota. Okay. I think Iowa has a better shot. I haven't taken a peek at Iowa's schedule yet, but Iowa's always they're like a higher grade of Minnesota. Iowa is.
They're almost like the same program right now.
They
at this
are.
Point.
Yeah.
Offense a little bit better. Defense kind of the same, but yeah, 7-5, 8-4 is right where they belong.
Yeah.
I just take a peek at Iowa's schedule real quick. It's no cakewalk either.
See, that's the dumb part, and we can talk about this on the Big Ten preview podcast. This is just what I hate about the expanded conferences. Like
every team's good.
Indiana last year, there's going to be some team in the Big Ten that we probably haven't previewed yet, or maybe we have. Like even the Nebraska, like you're going to have so many of these teams year in year out that you don't feel like you actually know who they are, and they win 11-1. Just because of how the schedule fell in that specific year. There's going to be a team that's going to play only one of Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, right? Or a Michigan in an up year, or, a Wisconsin if they get their act together. Like the powers of the Big Ten, if there's going to be 1 or 2 teams every year that avoids a large majority of those and has a favorable schedule, and they will make a run. So discussion for another day when we forecast kind of the Big Ten, but that's just kind of the biggest downside that I continue to see with the expanded conferences. Anyways, that is the total complete Minnesota preview podcast. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast platforms, on Spotify, on Apple. Please, please, please subscribe on YouTube. We want to get that feed going. Like I said, we want to bring live shows. We want to drive in viewers. We want to interact with you, the listeners. And I want to we want to continue to expand this podcast and bring you guys content weekly that you're enjoying. So please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Until next time, we will be previewing the Penn State Nittany Lions. Go Green.
Go Green.